All right. Good morning. So let's start with starting with mandala offerings, right? Yeah. Sa shi pu ki jun shi me to tam ri ra bling shi ni de gen ba de Sangye Shindu Mikte Owa Hidroko Namda Shin La Chupa Shoidam Guru Radha Kamniyatayami Chonan Togi Chonam La Chancho Bada Dani Kansu Dagi Chushegi Betonangi Dola Benchi Sangye Dopasho Chonan Togi Chonam La Chancho Bada Dani Kansu Dagi Chishegi Betonangi Dola Benchi Sangye Dopasho Chodan Soki Chonam La Chanchu Badu Dani Kasuchi Dagi Chishegi Betonangi Dola Benchi Sangye Dopasho
Thank you, Anchikila. Tari boss needs leadership. Boss leader this
So we have two bosses here at the Gombe today. Geshe is feeling a little bit apprehensive about it.
I
can go.
Tanganzu Delaya, Lojon Nimuser said, Sugar is right, Kanzu Kashi, Peshi, Yonu Major Chichinangan Norway, Lojon Nimuser. And he sent sugar is the
We're looking at a text that is called Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun, which teaches mind training. So for those of you who haven't been here before, this is what we normally do during the Sunday morning teachings. Geshe has been drawing from a text of mind training like the rays of the sun.
Tilda, Dinza, Jomden Digi, Tanganzulaya, Labshachik, Gavshak, Tig Chashich, Tanganzu.
As such, we're looking at a set of instructions, advice, precepts, or instructions given by the Buddha, the Bhagavan.
Ani kiawa chema dhanda dembachik. Tani kiawa ni kiawa junchini, ani suzuki kiawa di kiawa dhanda dembachini da rang la ya pemba maase, shen la ya pendi drutungengi, ani kiawa chik kyurgi yobanza, tindri la sikchini, an nganzu la ya labsha kyunshawa yinba di sivu shujire sirwa.
And the set of instructions is dealing with, first of all, the need to make sure that we make this life meaningful. So to make this lifetime meaningful, and also the way to make our life meaningful, so that if we make sure that in this life our life is made meaningful, also next lifetime will also become meaningful, so that we'll go through a succession of lifetimes, from life after life, continuing to make sure that we live a meaningful life, being of benefit to ourselves and of benefit to others.
Tenza ta nganzu mitsin di nanglo la ya, nganzu kewa mitsin di nanglo la ya, ani ko nganzu pigi kita chik lu dindi chi langsiwe je la ya, ani kaduk rinpa mambu chik chegi yoba di gyasa gyatangpa res. Ta kaduk chebi kabdu la ya, kaduk de la ya, donlen chingin ki zu suesam singi chik. Disung da suesam yoba ina, ro suesam yoba ina, ani karita cheba ina ya, donlen che tuya chik yosa res. Tinza zu suesam di chik tengdo as, ro.
So in a life, once we have taken a body such as this, it is guaranteed that there will be some problems and pain for us. And for that, we need patience. If we cultivate patience, perseverance, we will be able to bear with difficulties and problems that are inevitable in our life, since we have a body such as this.
Tirda, teni danganzu dewa dyogu yanza, deki ki shima di karares la undi, yang lojong la tu deba, pigi chi ngubi ki, ani chik kankim la soba dang, ani gyupen juk tsa mayimba, su samlo tangdang la ya, tu yaba di, nganzu metsi tangbu, kewa lemba ni chinin, tar chi parku, ani gyurum la ya dewa ina, ani zo di kal dengum dusla di, chamze la ya tenba chik, son yores, ro, nganzu tangbu kewa dini, chik pamegi chamze, dinangi chik amegi chamze la teni, chik yabu chik tenba chik mena, nganzu me ya chik chenbu cha tuya di, ko yongya kore yo marawas. Teni parki chik mitsi tarwi rin la ya chik susu la ya chamze chingin chi yobay na, ani mitsi di kiwu yung kore was. Tama gedro di na ya, ani chamgyong chingin chi yobay na, lo debi ngani tsepe ya chik yung yores. Te gyawaram chik tu tagdo songo dos. Dinza chamze se di, nganzu mitsi na la kechambu shu chagu yobay za, ani chamze la labsu tiya, ani pechen di na la ya, shib tsakbu chin songo yores.
So then we use the life that we have now in recognizing that the basis for our happiness and well-being is training our mind. We recognize that it's not that happiness and well-being will solely depend upon whatever conditions, external conditions we have, how much money or wealth we have, but it is mainly dependent upon the way that we think. It depends on our attitude. So the basis for all the happiness and well-being that we seek is a development of love and care for others. And when we look at how we are sustained by love and care from the very beginning of our life, when we're being cared for by our parents, by a mother, we would not have had the ability to grow up and develop without love and care that was extended to us by our parents. And not only that, also once we grow up, when we look at the relationships that we have with others throughout our life, we can see how our happiness and well-being is also sustained and nourished by love and care. And certainly at the end of our life, when we come closer to the transference from this lifetime to the next upon our death, taking care of us, being taken care of, is also something that is sustained by love and care. So therefore, when we look at how important love and care is, how important it is to us in our life, we can recognize how at the very beginning, in the middle, and at the end, it is vital. And this is what His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been emphasizing for quite a lot of time. And when we look at what this text of mind training that we've been studying together for some time is teaching us in great details just that, how to develop a sense of love and care for others.
Terda da jamzi nyamnin di pigilaya tik nganzolaya jamzi chogri wachik yorwasra ngi chik nam sem ngi pugu putu da ngi chik se ya jamzi chogri wa digi wandu sombayna ani pigi chagdan kiyagi gyurn droyaji matobi ani ta yungu yo marwasra chagdan pewayna dunga yungu yores ra chamanti wa yungu yores nyokda yungoras dinza ta jamzi chogriyo masombi jamzi chik ro ani chik tamcheleya ani ta tungingi ani jamzi chik kyangogres disungdos.
First off, we can recognize that we do have some portion of love and care for others, and yet the love and care that we have for others for the time being is partial. In a sense that we extend it to, for example, our family members, to our household, our family members, to our children, and so forth. We do have a certain degree of love and care for others, and when it is kept in a partial way, it does give rise to anger and attachment in certain situations because of the partiality that we have in our mind. Because our love and care for others is partial, when anger and attachment arise in our mind and it depends upon that, it causes problems, difficulties, and pain. So the type of love and concern that we want to develop here for others is an impartial sense of love and concern that is equally extended to everyone.
Gasa chikda magasa ni tas sogdo asra magasa dil leondi bigile ya chik chagdo kia jensen kia la soba kanji di tone ane sosule ya drada mazuna mambu chik soja ya di jamzi chori wa dik ton ra ta jamzi smalana bigi ta chik decha ka ton kanji decha tone teni ane dra mambu chik soja ka yobadi Geshe Gyatambades. Mimambuchi Magaya Chaya Zodi and Sosug Tatsuton. Sojawanza Chamzi Chori Maimbi. Any Chamzi Karso Taji Samalaya Tatungi Chamzi Singidi Gogdus. Di Bekichimuchin Sonyores Ra.
And the sense of partiality. Partial love and concern for others is what causes us to categorize different people in different ways. There are those that we like and those that we dislike. It depends upon this liking someone and not liking someone else is based on love and concern that is extended to others in a partial way. We become proud. We have a sense of competitiveness and contempt with respect to those that we dislike. And through that, we create enemies in a sense that we see others as our enemies. Those states arise because of attachment on account of insufficient love and care for others, which means that basically it depends upon our attitude. It depends on the way that we consider others with a sense of love and concern. And so long as they are partial, so long as we still have attachment to some and aversion to others, we will still continue to have our mind will still continue to make that distinction between others. So the type of love and concern that we want to develop, which is so important, is love and concern which are equally extended to all.
Terda dindigi chamzi chogriyo mayimbi tamchilaya tatungi chamzi chik gomyalaya namju ra ranglaya namju gudus sherab gudus ra sherab namju jing mebayna ani nguyu nitsul tatug maras tinza sherab songshas ra.
And in order to be able to develop love and concern for others, which will be unbiased, impartial, We need to develop wisdom. We need to approach that in a smart way, without which we're not going to be able to develop that sense of love and concern to everyone exactly to the same degree. So we also, together with the development of love and concern, we also need to make sure that we do it with wisdom.
Terda sharab di kya di sharab jaya dosra manzu lobjong khari na jaya yoba na shingi sharab lobjong dia jan ni suzu sharab khombal tanya di yachi jada ma yorwas tinza da tinza chomden di labja sana mundu lomzen di tab dan sharab ni shil shabi toni ani lab shawa yimba di sibu shujores ro sibu peyores.
And therefore, we need to train in the development of wisdom, just like anything else that we study, anything else that we take up in our training. We do that, we train in that through the development of wisdom. And this is what the Buddha, the Bhagavan, has presented to us, the development of the method side and the wisdom side in a clear fashion. Practices or training that are taken up together with the development of wisdom.
Mi mado meli shenbi socha shen chik tondrola soba ra didi zawni jantu ya kora tabshi kora yo mares tinza nganzu melaya dinji gi lomzen sambodi jantu ya gi niba ani namju dinji chi yo banza di ani jango ya di na mezid na la kecheshu di chagores tila ya loka chok tu ba na mezid tenda dembajire tila ya loka chok ma tu ba na ta ani ta tindijires ro ta Mr. Trollares land the dream the inia get some any million launch in any socha shenly cover the power logic and chon to your maris lavna chowores.
The ability to take up this training is exclusive to us as human beings, in a sense that we have the ability to develop wisdom, we have the ability to develop the method side, and other living beings do not have that ability, particularly when we look at other living beings, animals, and so forth. We can see how we have the power, we have the ability to do that. We have the wisdom, the intelligence that allows us to develop our mind in this way. And therefore, it is important that we make use of the ability that we have, the intelligence that we have in order to develop those qualities. And if we do so, if we develop our power and wisdom in the development of loving care for others, it means that we're making our life meaningful. And without making sure that we fully utilize this potential for development, it would be maybe not right to say that we'll be completely wasting our life, but still, we're not going to be able to hone the particular potential that we have as human beings. What will make us special or distinguish in comparison with other living beings.
Terda ta shera gutone ba chamze labdan ro di chamze la ya jangdang di ta nguyu nesul sibitonda chamze lab gore se tirwasta nguyu nesul samdang di chamba da zewa singi di benaro zewa se di donga da thanna thandu gi sambadeleya ro donga da thandu gi sambadeleya zewas dewa dendu gi sambadeleya chambas o dilagores ro.
And the development of love and care for others are things which are in line with reality. So we use different terms in our mental development. We use the term love and care. Here, the meaning of care would be to have the wish for others to be free from suffering, and love, wishing them to have happiness and well-being.
Tenza da dindigi chamba delaya da chogri da chogri mayimba su masong sedi ra ani di tasak yul da rowajituk yungyoras ra de tamchelo dewa de dengge ji re dunga da mindeba ji re mare tolaya cheba cheba na tamchi jigyur ngan samalon delaya ji dulo kar manda khayana ya sobda kar suya bana ya sem nalo ya deva da dunga mindeba jigyur yoba nanshi ani rowajituk di jigyur yes sonyores ra tinza tamchelolaya mingni 대월되는 찌마로 냠비기 로지어나 아니 초리 마송이 잠을 센데인데 차고 그래서 탐지로라야 아니 대체네 동안의 단독이 쌈바치 대탐지 동안의 찌마로 냠비기 쌈바디 샘 띵니 여바이나 디 아니 제가 뭐마들이스 로 산지 좀 된디 그 사말로 거세 제가 디 차고 그래서 다디 디투스 장친 소시 샘 띵니 딘디치기 소와 레바이나 아니 가wan 드러나야 아니 사물로 즉 년도 통투야디 야지자도 뭐 연구였어요.
In the development of love and care for others, those that we consider, those that we observe are all living beings. We recognize that all of them, all living beings, are equal, just like us in wanting to be happy and well, and wanting to avoid suffering. So really, when we ask ourselves, is it really the case? Is it really the case that sentient beings are equal in wanting to be happy and wanting to avoid suffering and pain? Geshe reckons that we can certainly recognize the basic wish for everyone to be well, everything that lives to be well, to be happy, and to avoid suffering. So we do appear in different forms and shapes. We wear different clothes. We might have different skin complexion, have completely different types of bodies, and still we can recognize how all of us are equal in that basic wish for happiness and for the wish to avoid suffering. So when we recognize the equality between all living beings, then the genuine sense of concern for others arises in the mind and thinking, may they have that. May they be free from suffering. May they have happiness. So an authentic sense of love and concern arises in the mind. May all of them have that in reality. This is a real sense of love, a true sense of love. It is a heart sense of love and care for others when we hold others as being really important to us, close to our heart.
제가 저기 벽 개발지기 송지 나라야 아주 사고라야 부지도 수는 로댕이 콜레 삼부감이 감범에 좀 붙라고 그랬어. 감범에 좀 붙도 수는 로대야디 아니 데비치드레샤스. 라 부트로말야 미메비 계절에서 정말 미메 아니 비기 가디는 부트로마 간주 통원디 가디는 육대기도 왔어. 역부 쇼로대야디 대한 데비치드레샤스. 간진 도르드나 간주 직된 탐제로 비기 반드는 육대야디 데비치드레샤스. 딘자 참말로 대원 되고요다 동안 되고 매바디 아니 세신 타바 야치 야담바 레샤스 딘자 디 간주기 몬트바 체체네 아니 지규르 때토바나 아니 랑싱기페 시대 박베 셈라야 아니 박페부치로 차단 총롱기 깨치네 셈 축되어 마인바 셈데 박페부 시대직 돌아야 네그레스 티 The
Tibetan master said once that when you look at how living beings behave, even as far as going down to an earthworm, crawling inside the earth, having no legs and making its way through the soil, if you wonder, why does it behave like that? Well, it does that because it still seeks a degree of well-being. Wanting to be well, wanting to be, wanting to have well-being. And when you look at ants rushing here and there, it seems that they're not walking leisurely. They're always rushing somewhere. When you think of why did they do that? Again, this basic propulsion of wanting to be well is what motivates that type of behavior. So then, when we consider how living beings behave and ourselves and other living beings, we can recognize that all of us are motivated clearly by that basic wish for happiness and well-being. Certainly 100% certainty that we are equal in seeking happiness and well-being. So when we develop that consideration, when we recognize the equality between ourselves and all other living beings, we can develop a mind that is so much more at ease. And that the mind will not be that subject to a great degree of anger and attachment, which is caused by a sense of partiality. We're able to consider everyone as equal in recognizing that basic wish to be happy and well. Our mind certainly can be made much more open and spacious.
Terda da dinza tang anzugi rangi degi chet rangi mitsitundon degi chet teni ani socha shenlaya ani tsewa chededi socha shenlaya dunga chededi zawa nine jigmandos chambu chagmandos ro di chambu chagmandos jomden da disungodos ro.
And therefore what the Buddha said is that when we engage with a quest for happiness, given that we have such a short lifetime, if we look for a happiness through harming others, through inflicting suffering of others, it is not the right way of doing that. This is not the right thing to do.
There that di karchin chaware is laund that dindigi matami sevi legadi ra sevi legadi chebana shenlaya neba ranglaya neba yongde ani dindigi karchin chaware is ra nanzo sam shendu rangshin nikalaya nungi legaji chegmaros inaya sam shendu macheba inaya pe ngangi pe dindigi ledeadi karjin chaware se that chiwach nganzulata yungdos ra.
So why do we end up behaving in a way that is harmful to ourselves and others? Why do we do that? It's not that with the right intention we end up harming ourselves with others. This is not an intentional thing.
The patient dig land or ding anzu singzam di dire nganzu lelan tamji chiglan da se dire 당분이스 지금 휴가서 가셔 니들 네가 샤즈 네 이놈이나 독박됐어
also 니바 삼중기 림바 니 샤발라니 콘존 전중기 셈 디고츠 야마르베 아레
디 고츠사라 니바 삼중기 림바 샤발라니 콘존 전중기 셈 데네마데
라는 탐치 칠라다 딜레 아야 Okay. So why is it that we still behave in such a way? Well, when we go back to the text as we're studying mind training like the rays of the sun, in the actual technique for cultivating the awakening mind, this is the section that we are covering at the moment, we are now looking at the section that says what is to be given up by contemplating the disadvantages of selfishness. So page 46 in the book. Yeah. So in page 46, under the section of what is to be given up by contemplating the disadvantages of selfishness, we have a line that says, banish the one to blame for everything. So this line is taken from the 7-point mind training, the root text of mind training like the rays of the sun.
The len tamji chiglan dasya di the len sama di gyagors the tamji chigla tushas ra chigla tuyagi chig the carres laundi the jidan dihanma yunga chig the carres laundi mumba mari balaya mumba mari mishi balaya 미시비 왕기 마시비 왕기 아니 녀견 탐제 용대지 작은 도스 딘자 다 몽바 세고야디 다 개체슈 산지 위쇼나라야 개체슈디 아니 몽바 세야드레스 라.
So here the 7-point mind training text says blame everything, banish the one to blame for everything. So the thing that we blame for all the problems and difficulties that we experience is ignorance. And this is what we will later on cover in the text. Ignorance, not knowing, not understanding. This is the source, the main source for all the faults, all the problems, all the harm that we experience. And as the Buddha said, this is the most important thing to recognize.
들다 다 몸바 세위체도 다 몸바 세야기 아니 탑조디 셔럽드 차고레스 로 셔럽을 때니 미시바디 세고르다 셔럽 기비 체도 때니 아니 초사 드바장세디 용구요레스 베낭안도다 지금 쳐버피야로 소바 아니 지금 덴반도야로 소바 고송 투데 샹야로 소바 참말로 로 아니 셔럽 기약체도 초사네 셔럽 기약체도 아니 탑티된 거다 레 당보와라 야베 갑도 비게 저랑 셔럽 공고스라나 아니 지 소놈다 딘디 비게 있다 지 갑데 메나 카부쇼 차건자 디 소놈 사야 체도 되니 아니 고소투데 샹야 아니 지 라간 자마소야 아니 쳐버피야 아니 차츠야 되니 지 생각 담은 다야로 소버 두 참으로 아니 탑 디체도 송고레스 라 송고레스.
The main method for eliminating our ignorance is the development of wisdom. But then in order to develop wisdom, we need to make sure that we have the support for the development of wisdom. And the support is created by accumulating the collections and also purifying negativities and obscurations. So in order to engage with the activities that support the development of wisdom, then we can do different things. We can make offerings, we can construct statues and tankas, all sorts of things that for us represent the qualities of body, speech, and mind. We might do different recitations of prayers or mantras or what have you. All of those things are done in order to accumulate the sufficient merit, the merit that will be sufficient to act as a basis for the development of wisdom. Particularly when you begin with the development of wisdom, if you go straight to the development of wisdom without making sure that you have the foundation for the development of wisdom, what supports the development of wisdom, it is likely that it's going to be pretty hard. That it's going to be quite difficult to develop the right wisdom that we want to develop here. So therefore, we begin with the things that help us to create the foundation of the support for wisdom. So we might do things such as we said, make offerings, take care or take part in the maintenance of the altar, doing some cleaning, doing prostrations, doing recitations, doing prayers, reciting mantras, and so forth. All those different activities are used in order to create the accumulations which are supportive of the development of wisdom.
어디래다 베나 가서다 비기다 셔럽 고무용디 쪼디 아니 비기다 지 내룩tom바니 텐세디 송고요라스로 내룩tom바니 비기 다음에 봐서야지 다음에 봐율 다음에 봐 코라 아니 다음에 봐래 가두이는 거 다음에 봐래 텔레 여여버레스로 아니 디 이내야 디 개침부 쇼지 송대야디 코란 개침부 임바 윤센 쪼레면도스 개침부 임바디 딩 비길이야 따퉁인기 셔럽드 개침부 쇼지 차건자 아니 디키 위치도 아니 다음에 봐디 개침부 쇼지 송대고야디 데렌도스로.
And the main type of wisdom that we seek to develop is wisdom that understands reality. And here, the particular reality that we refer to is called emptiness or selflessness. So when you look at the teachings found in Buddhist scriptures of selflessness, you see how selflessness or emptiness are emphasized. So much teachings are given on this topic. And selflessness is always, you can say, the same object, selflessness. So why is it that it is emphasized in scriptures as being so important? It is emphasized in that way because wisdom that we seek to develop will observe particularly that. So it is important to develop wisdom. Actually, the most important thing is to develop wisdom, and wisdom is developed in relation to a particular object, selflessness, reality.
어디래서 딘자다 딘디기 셔럽 사몬디 로 타와드 탐진 김비 아니 살아야지 아니 드투야게 탑초디규와 아니 셰럽디 셰럽 사무디 아니 기약 쳇 아니 소수 소사드자 아니 쳬바직 피길야 아 nganjata jikting nangla ya chukhan lu ni ya chobaj phigdo as te dil ya droson dan tin dig toni ke yo mar de le la shujras yina ya de di ya bu chi chamaja se di kulhon tsama chi yo ba na ta di chobati labchin shu cha gores ro tin sabu shu cha gores ta kulhon tsama ji me ba na kyarangi metse kanza sa sha we gi chi gyunor penjo tsama phu ba ina ya kulhon ge manda ba ina 공공 만다면은 초라레스 로 네 피기 초라 친구 베나지 아니 두글러 소바 딘디지 베 아니 거대 유 나올래야 계란기 아니 지 사동 사말 룩샤바나 다랑 초라로 디난시 소리지 차로 딘자 콜롱디 로 콜롱 삼바 단지 슈데 콜롱 딘디지 톤당 초사드르자 제고도 셰럽지다 이지미 고도 삼 아니로 란신이기 대든 주야게 다지 탑초도 주버디 셰럽들 두고도 딘디 진지미 고도 디체등에다 초사드르자 제긴 삼니 아니 연셔 포바카마도 마피바 있나야 초사 쉬운 조고레스 다 디송도 아스라.
The wisdom that we develop is the wisdom that will lead us to the state of liberation and to the state of enlightenment, which means that it's not just any type of wisdom, it's a very specific type of wisdom, the one that leads to liberation and enlightenment. And in order to develop that wisdom, we accumulate the collections, we purify the negativities and obscurations. And the most important thing in doing so is our motivation. For without the proper motivation, we're not going to be able to accumulate the collections which are required to accumulate, to purify negativity stuff we need to purify. So if you have this motivation, positive and pure motivation, whatever you do becomes pure, becomes very effective. So even if you don't, for example, when you make offerings, even if you don't make extensive offerings of things that are really precious and expensive or what have you, even if you offer something that is quite meager, still with a correct motivation, a pure motivation, whatever you offer is going to become very effective. It's going to be profound. Whereas conversely, if your attitude is not the right attitude, even if you offer everything that you have, everything that you've accumulated in your life, if your motivation is not the right motivation, you're not gonna attain the desired result. It's just like saying that without the right motivation, it would be like pouring food into a container that used to store poison without cleaning it before that. So if you think of a container that stored poison, then you chuck food into it, food or drinks, without cleaning it properly, everything will go to waste. You damage whatever you put to it. So in the same way, if you take up certain practices, but you don't have the right motivation, your motivation is not pure, your motivation is not clean, then it's not going to be the right motivation that will lead you to the desired result. So we want to accumulate the collections, we want to purify negativities and obscurations so that we will be of benefit to ourselves and others, that we will desist from harming ourselves and others. So with the right motivation, even if we do simple things, even as far as just offer one glass of water, even if we do just that with the right motivation, even that practice can become very powerful and effective.
어딜 당에 다 로로로지 캐란저 아니 사바딘디 여바나 아니 공고 당번에 비길래야지 고기 솔기메로 차송바나 디마레 삼성 초딩알 가디네 용구도 진짜 디체등이 만시하기 드소페 아니 캠바 잠마세 라렌라 따르고레스 이나야 다 가시기다 고녀메나 드소 산지기 추고 쪼디 and Geshe
is trying to add some details into what the text is saying here, because obviously we also have some people that come to the center and sometimes they haven't been to other teachings before. And Geshe feels that sometimes if you come into a session and the only thing that is discussed is a few lines taken from a text and we stick only with those lines, then it is likely that not much clarity will be developed in one's mind. So Geshe is trying also to supplement what the text is saying with giving some more details or branching out to other things, so that even if you don't really get what the text is saying at this point in time, at least maybe there will be something that you would be able to hold to in the end, in thinking that, roughly speaking, if I put into practice a Buddhist practice, this is how I should be doing it. This is what Buddhists do in general.
But the lalin chimachi tarikars nyetsadara gori sobda me chunzo kareres lada long jail hayomaras game again digris.
So then we have here a few bald people wearing those strange yellow clothes sitting at the front. So now they're supposed to be the ones that are putting it into practice in the correct way. So even if you, at the end of the session, turn to them and say, what's the go with you? You know, what's this hair fashion? What's those strange clothes that you're wearing? Geshe reckons that with correct practice, they're not going to get angry at you.
And then Jan Rojan Shimbada Lalен Latar Chocho the Remondos, the Kalakabu Shuyoras, Inia Lalen Lataria Altamo, she and the kitchen Shuch Chagores, Ro she by na Semnolia Pachach Nubach Legores, Shimba Nubach. Then dig Nubadi and it gain Shemba the Tion dig Nubadi and Perchin, Penanganzu Tajik, and it Zishingi, 7 Tavo, Ro Zishingi 7 the Sala Sabana, Tiganaya, Zishingi, the 7 Lepsaros, that Delayachik, and it should down, Tredan, Sala Sobag, picking Tungian Sansona, and Zishimedo game with us. The Nanshingi similarly, picking Shimbi Pachagiabana, and it that Tijilayach, Suzu Sosa Rujan, Tindi Jobanani, and a Sam Giondreagi, and a Reo the Chagores.
We here study the Dhamma, we study Buddhism, but it doesn't mean to say that putting it into practice is an easy thing. So you study something, but it does not necessarily mean that you can practice it properly. But still, in order to put something into practice, first of all, you need to know what to do. You need to develop knowledge, and knowledge is developed through studying. Without knowing what you need to do, how, or what we need to do, how we'll be able to have a good practice. So this is where we begin. It's important to, first of all, make sure that we study through, that we also plant imprints upon a mind stream. And those imprints are potentials that are activated when met with proper conditions. It's just like saying that when you have a seed, a potent seed of a particular plant, to have the seed enough is, to have the seed only is not enough. It needs to be met with water and earth and food, sustenance, and so forth. If all the right conditions are present, then it can grow into a beautiful or sustaining plant. So similarly here, we're putting imprints, potentials for the development of our wisdom, but we also need to provide them with all the right conditions for doing so. And the conditions are the support that we build up through the accumulation, through the purification of negativities and obscurations. So if we make sure that we take care of all those areas, we accumulate the right collections or the required collections, we purify negativities and obscurations, the imprints that we place upon a mind stream will be activated at some point.
Dinza Kanji Sanji Jumdin Digi, and Dig Lavja Samuchik, Nayores. Dinza Tanganzu, Pigi Tanganzu, Dunla Young, Ra, Manzu Tawa the Zomatso, da, Ani, Pe deep Chimachijenta, Yamlin Chigi, Chela Yubi Kuros, Dinza, Tanganzu Chimachijan Lalenta Matuga in ya. Anzuchi, any Kimba Menaleda, this chick touch, Chegoya. kitchen where the bed lamps and long lunch chocho, but the cake gave chocho so this draw the when this chick mandy tira, but any long shoe land, gay shoe getting, it's all in chigumentos, chigumens, and gain kitchen. I think on Sajan del Deni, gain kidney, any Sanji chula ya, chick shandy shoot to wena, the Yahoo pendos,
So in thinking of those trainings, this advice that we get through those teachings and how we apply to us individually, particularly to us monastics, those who are here at least sitting at the front from the monks and nuns, we need to put it into practice as much as we can, and also to put it into practice in a correct way. In a sense that you should say that the expectation of us putting those teachings into practice is probably higher than the expectation that we have from people in our lay community. In a sense that suppose that in certain situation here we will completely lose it and start to lash out at others, yell at them, abuse them, and so forth. How is it going to go down if we're going to just lose it like that? So it's important to make sure that we take those teachings to heart and make sure that we, at least in our practice, try to behave in a way that accords with the teaching as much as we can to our best ability.
니만 뛰시는 게 내가 시온다 미망부 쇼지 삼주 레기어리 내가 최고요리 되니 디간에 양아주 직된도 댕기 아니 겐든 버츠고베 아니 녀터 테베스로 시에데바나 콘즈 셈슈 차이 차그라서라 어디자 디마치와치 아니 콘즈레야 가주 펜토투두 라 콘즈냠도 아니 드론 펜토시도나 야슈 때다 마투나야지 아니 지효라다 콜론삼다 넘버 타와지 키치니 드로바이나 아니 응안주 야후차사레스로
그렇지 준도
전문도 좀 진단하고다.
We have also some, a team of people that work here running the center, help in different areas of running the center. So particularly, at least for us as monastics, if we create additional work for them in complaining and yelling at them, criticizing them and so forth, it's not going to go down well. It's really important that we, as much as we can, we consider others, we appreciate others, we become as supportive as much as possible of others.
어디래지다 드리다 내년 담지 찍을란다 시송데스 내방이 질로샤기 인스라 란자 심젠남 동안 문제봐 동안 문제봐 토도 봐봤다 대바 만들어 탐지 있어왔네 레렌데사 추르 젠도 초와티 단 노르바레송 레렌다사 축바 인디 대달 날면이 시지버 로르 나우 투드케니 동아 유링라 아니 다트라바 곤하소는 영화 탐지 규메다 문투비 길이 좀 많이 내다 뉴문비 군종라 때는 종라 레제 뉴문지 소비 뉴문졸라 뉴문기 나니까 다든 준비 마리반디 동아 탐지 기비 자와인디 전주래 지된다는 세와 강요다 지단 동아 진이 요결바 대군 다든 좀 레조나 진진되고 달라지시차스.
In explaining this line that is taken from the 7-point mind training, banish the one to be blamed for everything. It says, we sentient beings run after misery that we do not desire and never achieve what we wish. At the root of it all, we seek to lay the blame elsewhere, which is a mistake. This is because all the various lengthy and violent sufferings that come from being born amongst the 5 or 6 kinds of existence, from the hell without respite to the peak of existence, are not without causes, nor do they arise from unrelated causes. These come about in dependence upon the actions and disturbing emotions that give rise to everything. Since actions are caused by disturbing emotions are the primary factor. Moreover, amongst the disturbing emotions, it is the ignorance that clutches onto the misconception of self that is the principal source of all misery, as stated by Shantideva in his guide to Bodhisattva's way of life. However much torment, fear, and suffering there is in the world, it all arises from the misconception of self. Oh, what trouble this great ghost brings me.
There's going to get sick the image imagine the mounting in the chest. These are Benang as a couple of that got legaching and sogara. Couple of legaching and sogi, young Anzuchi tend to be a dinging gendun biggie, and they do laya, so sigoedi, kitchen chasas. Kansan lomba dindilaya, Ranzu Pedro, Jagado Jimbaina, Trawa the so much here. And tab they will pay yours. Suzuki, Tsubiki, Tolaya, some tango mares, Kansan Gombata Sangi, any so Geshe, any Chichologi, any Shandeping at the Jindaching to like Danny, any Soviet Tola, Piggy, Dachi, Tajibu Shuji, Santo Menaya, Kanji Chogomato Yaji Tola, Gangachi Yomares. The Lomban Dindilayachi, Loudon the chick, any and lotion shungi, put up homutinti, and it Tawa Anijin, Deguchona, any Soviet thinking Tolaya, Sanluj Madana, Kabu Perendos. Dinza, the Dindi Lutani, any Zumachin, Tawachin, Dingin Solaya, any Kabu Lega Chingisori, Umigi, Suzuki Minamo, Dindi over Tizolaya, Robachia, Twingian Jaya. Jesu Yaranjin, Dichi go at the vacation, but didn't reach Chibana, and the Lomba Chamber Nanshingi, Nansu Lomba Delaya, any Tawa the Zomachingi. Yunguros, Titone, and the Lomba Delaya, Mombalaya, Sanji Chuton, Pendo Drungi, and Mambu Yunguros, or Dindi Sam Shani, yeah, Legachigo at the vacation, Reshas.
Actually, Geshe, I wanted to add another thing to what he just said before that. So, in India and Tibet, the monastic community is often supported by the community, in the sense that people are making offerings. Then when you join a monastery, then you have somewhere to stay and you have food and so forth. So this way of living is supported by the community. Here, of course, it's different in a sense that Buddhism is new in this place. So this community support is not found in the way that is found in Tibetan society, either in Tibet or in India. So when people here think of ordination, they still need to take into consideration how they're going to support themselves. But still, community support is still important for when someone does decide to become a monastic. They are deciding that for the rest of their life, this is what they do when they take upon the accept the vow. They think that I'm going to remain monastic for the rest of my life, and I'm going to, as much as I can, study and practice the Buddha's teaching. So also, it's important here, kind of the people that are involved with the running of the center or the community, also to make sure that we become as supportive as possible. Supportive, help in whatever way we can, also rejoice in this effort. Geshe reckons that thinking about it like that would mean that in the future, hopefully we'll have more monastics, then we'll have also a better ability to make sure that the Buddhist teachings still remaining us for a very long time. And as such, we offer service to the Buddhist teachings.
Yeah, the Kashi Suzu Loyas Leni, Tawada Anichiondi, Suzu Mizit Tarikala, Chikpi Legachi, Peshasani, the Jiki Mevadoinani, the Yaburas, in a Dimena, Caliperendos, Becalerendos. In the Ditolaya, Manzu Bigi, Penasera Gombado in the Tautonda Sum Hala Joris, the Zulia Tsutingela, and in Robert Cheding, Manchedi, Tambutanjasenda, and Jacha the gun, Jacha Truju Sajingiris, Robert Chingindi, no shop Chagores. Then I think in Suzuki and Miri Kazatang and the Shango the Chigoman in a story, Mirikoni, turning into Zulaya and denouncing Robert Chechin, Jinda Chechin, Canon Chauchin, so much in those days and Canon Chik into Yang in the rich, and it's Robert Chewan, the D, Piggy Michi the mind, but Mount, but Lomba Coralia, and Payaki. Legation Drodos, Dinitis Chitanangi Giris, right? In the Dinitis Nantuna Yabu Peosaris.
when some people here seek ordination, then they do so having already lived their full life, and some of us become ordained when we've already worked and accumulated some money. So we have enough to actually get by for the rest of our life. This is for some of us, but it is also possible that for some amongst us, still kind of considering how we're going to support ourselves is one of the main things that we struggle with, or that we need to think of. It's different to Tibetan society, for example. So Geshe came from Sera Monastery, and at Sera Monastery, there are, roughly speaking, let's say 3,000 monks, and they all have a place to stay. They all have enough food to eat. And Geshe thinks that probably, roughly speaking, 60% of that is coming from outside of Tibetan society, so supported by patrons and sponsors outside of Tibetan society. So, situation. Tadi nupcho sea di ngaso nupcho marwa.
Ore, ane, yeah.
Ngaso shacho rwa. Shacho yamani Singapore, Taiwan, dila sopa shacho rwa.
Ore.
Chezong geran samna.
The ngesam the pen the day, Ari chodro, Euro chodro. That Singapore tenants, some remado, Jamancha go saving Rigdoch, Sarah Doji by now. Watching in Mancha.
They never stand nupcho marwa.
Ore.
Anyway, Geshe said that it seems that also a big portion comes from the West, but kind of this is when Tibetans say that it comes from the West, I always find it problem to think of Australia as West. I mean, we are in the East, aren't we? So, no, so Geshe said that, it comes outside of Tibetan society in a sense that, of course, there are some sponsors from Taiwan and Singapore and so forth, but also some of them come from non-Eastern or kind of non-Asian background cultures. So whether or not Australia is West or not, this is not the no, this is not the point. Kind of not coming, let's say, not from Asian background. So anyway, Geshe feels that so in Tibetan society, this is how it has been working so far. And here, since Buddhism is still at the beginning, then it's still also important to make sure that we support our community. So even if you can support one person, every once in a while, Geshe feels that still it can have this long-term effect over the development of Buddhism in a place like that.
Garik to Sunang, Ganari, Taiwan, Singapore, Tizunang, Yachi, travel so much into ya, Koranzo, Misig Tony, and Shante Piada, Kuzita, Ropa Shuyores. These sort of Lawarda, Chidan the Ujiras in a didn't number enough. The Ginton to Shegoras, Ra.
Anyway, Geshe said that in kind of when you look at the difference between Asian cultures and non-Asian cultures, like in Tibet and in China and so forth, people culturally have a sense of respect and veneration to monastic communities. So they're supportive of them, they have a sense of respect. And obviously here, since this is not a background, it's different.
Sri Lanka Gomba the Doras, Sri Lanka Gomba drone, the Koranzugi and Miss Samalog Petty. Chigirchin Ponchin, combat the Tadibush, Miss Leva in the bed, and the Shella Sama Frida, Chuchidas Ra, Brisbane. The Koranzu mirrored the Mother Shamba Mimdas, Koranzu Missing Yonchin, Piglia, and it Shande in the Pucho Church, and it got Durdan, Gomonga Delia, Shande Kedra, Tindisada, and Dindi Kanji Mitsu and the Shande Pu. And watching it in the pit Nimata, what you Monsolayachi, and Lavjayari, Gom Triare, and it's in Demadari, do Sionita, the Abudas Dasra.
Geshe visited a Sri Lankan temple last month at Brisbane, and he says that this is a place that is completely supported by the community, and people come and they they make some offerings. They also the center offers food to the community, or food for free. They have meditation classes and so forth. Geshe really enjoyed his visit to that Sri Lankan temple. He thought that the way that they run stuff is really good. Anyway, Geshe said that this is like branching out of what we're looking at here.
다 샹야 당진기 주체비 당진선다 마리바 직바레 당진 주체비 뉴무기 장라 네번니 네빙옹치스 네제 치슈디 되유진슈 인자 다 딘디다 냠드 당진 데다 냠드 아 툼바 드브드메데스 다 딘디 소소라야 네제 바식치 네 바식기 댕이지다 아니 톰부 지역이 samdambayını tabi şunu yomarız. Mede tinili cüncülü. Deda yürün günça drakyoba. Ne bir sorun pevi güççü bu dagin nilan ngebar ne çana kovan cime gava kalan görürüz.
Anyway, going back to the text. It says, furthermore, since disturbing emotions, chiefly created by seizing onto a misconception of self, bring us harm, their actual adversary, we should not maintain relations with this long-term antagonist, in a sense that grasping at the self, this misconception of the self has been giving us so many problems and difficulties throughout our life for such a long time. And as such, we shouldn't hold on to grasping at the self as something that supports us, as something that is a good friend of us. We should not maintain relation with this long-term antagonist. The same text says, which means Shantideva's text, thus, through long, unbroken contact, he is our foe, sole cause of an ever-increasing heap of trouble. When we are certain of this in our hearts, how can we be happy and unafraid in cyclic existence?
샹야스다 란진진기 네버 토말라 자르시 란진진세티다 아니 조 착발렌도스로 착바디기 아니 초리 지거레스 로 착신 제사죠나 아니 단섬 계사지 낭길리견자 란진진세디 란라 착비 착바딜이야 조응은세 지거도스 란라 착비 착바디기 아니 네버라야 자르레스 네버 토말라 자르시 펜버 드리비 고카피 sambikwani kunam temperature this pita dadar temu mari bi thambi ran cheban zinji jen yawa torwan di lobata bin chen numbu sondi gedi keduseni ngondong geleki sosa chebi dikjin shemba kenten ndrndux suzu semlaya ran jinjin de tuksumki kyaba toni Gevi lodon jombo chimbi chonggon boyan dirdus hingi pukdu sona mayimbi zengin tomasani medame mayimbi neje tamji jen chamba chibi ani pungji ubin gochin teyan dirdus dimiktes loshanda leji shingla namshigi sabion tabi silinji chu yanda yandu chudin drowa ngamu chudu donga gyu nyugut toma dribar chibi sonum 캠보데얀 드르두 훈준 심비 산지 좀 된데 남다 랑레라얀 시번데 하시메비 유리 지송알라 다동야 지된데 지된린디비 용된 칸야 마자와 제모 라바똥을 준비 아니 뇽리 레로케얀 드르둑스
So here we're looking at a self grasping attitude, the conception of self, but also together with that, we can recognize that cherishing ourselves, the selfish attitude, is also a cause that gives rise to attachment to those that we like. And through that, we also develop anger or animosity to others. And through attachment and then anger, we experience problems, harms, suffering, and so forth. And therefore, the text says, moreover, we can attribute all these harms to our selfish attitude, and thinking of how it slams the door on all benefits and accomplishments. We should be aware of it. Likewise, the self-centered attitude is an expression of stupid ignorance, since this lack of consideration for others is like taking hold of the sharp weapon of wrong views and slaughtering any concern for good and bad deeds. So right here within us is an evil butcher who cuts off the source of life of high status and definite goodness. This selfish thought, holding up the bag of the three poisons, is the thief within us who destroys our harvest of virtue. By collecting rotten, worthless things in the cave of our heart, we have here within us an owl-headed deceiver who attracts all human and inhuman interferences. In the field of action are planted the seeds of consciousness. Irrigating them over and over again with the waters of desire and craving is the farmer here within us, who cultivates the numerous shoots of the 5 or 6 kinds of suffering beings. Even though the previous Buddhas, the transcended subduers or the Bhagavans, have spent as long as us in this beginningless world, we have been unable to adhere to any of these excellent qualities of this or the world beyond. So here within us is a naked, empty-handed slob behaving overindulgently. Yeah. Quite poetic, isn't it?
Tima loja da tima tindela sitsini name parte kandu keja dungar ki ne sudan trojan dungar ki tro chila longcho ki dungar ki longcho le mande chomden de ki sonrab da gonde ki kembo ta ki shonlu lama tambing gur ki pombale töshe ngeja kegen san du batar koyu pon sore la mingni semdongi debi nasim kembo de yan dindu pemba won mon chamebi sani 용어 dobin 펜바 중도 제니 고걸 망도 치지 내기 도무도 참여비 산 대치 폼비 네버 첨부 진중긴 도니 칠남 고비 라지 도만템비 렌도 캔 들도 제카 다카 동카 집이 트드야 계지 토드레는 상월지 경지 개와 존난 캠보다 레베 종이 Rama Pamanido Nalan Kevarchibi, Chimi, Shong Yamboteya, Dirdu, Yaki Givishini, Makiso, Shigi Partamjilla, Tola Tado, Membalan Densum, Nyambalan Densum, Membalan Nage, Dernate, Minijon, Kondru Kivi, Payan Hame, Tayan Sametar, Nimu Tamji Nani. Kayamba ten dirdu gedili dedun jo mintrushe ngeba chomde de yi sonru gondren kembo nam yi shonlu panden lama tambi gurgi pumbal töshe ngela devar dela dunga chonse tsaya mende shendu jengi kona ya gewe chola lodru minye cherangi kana mondowa la chuturdu babatar ngam shugi juba cheba gandu tautu de kelembi tijen lota cheyan dirdu Nimu Jedi Shedon Bundaki, Kova Toma Mevani, Tesangi Pardu, Never the Dunga Tomala Jar, Pendir Juba, to me go Kajan, Tadoyan Didaki, Chonsejan Mentoi, Mig Meba. Dezo Kambutavi, Hari Lonte and Dirdu, Dona Chonda Dunga Tamji Kibi, Shi, Ranchin Zingi on the Linga Yusum Choba Tana, Chidada Nan Tuba, Deshin Never Tamjin Joey, Hadi. Tengi chiwu gongon tawate ranchinzi jen yawa tobi lo shibar chela dela dachin ji son dasu ki ru chebar chadi paba shibali shani kyoki gogo kalabi hungi tuyde shenyindi ngenton tagyo kandun jo kyoki cheba kunshumsha dagi shenla kyo zongi kyo war masum shenshapol kede pamen gyuna kyo simjen namla majina kyogi ko nyawayi soma namla jindungi kede tedar rishi redashi kowe chimbi yurindu tanun könum tenjidi kyogi randu sembasho shesombo taros.
The text continues in saying, wherever we are born, from the peak of existence to the hell without respite, we dwell in misery. Whoever we befriend is a friend of suffering. Whatever objects we use are nothing but objects of anguish. They are the words of the Buddha, the transcended Sabyo, the Bhagavan, found in the text of the learned masters who commented on his thoughts and are to be heard in the songs of realizations of the supreme spiritual masters. Yet, even though this is definitely the case, like an old dog attracted to a scrap of food, the glutton within us constantly engrossed in the marvels of cyclic existence. When a meditator intervenes to pacify military conflicts, much confusion arises from the fundamental uncertainty over whether benefit will or will not be forthcoming. So it is with us because of a fundamental uncertainty about whether our fears will lead to trouble or not. We have within us a coward who can only guess whether the barrier he constructs will suffice to allay his fear that one major hurt will ruin him again. We fight with swords, arrows, and spears in the hope of gaining victory and profit. And when we lose, we console ourselves by accusing somebody else. We have within us an evil being who shamelessly blames all problems on our learned teachers and abbots, our friends, and those dear to us, our parents and relatives. We are jealous of everyone from the highest spiritual friend to the lowliest louse. We are competitive with equals, arrogant towards inferiors, become conceited when praised, and angry when criticized or abused. Like the roaming of an unbridled horse, of all the disturbing emotions within us, this is the most restless. We should never fool ourselves about the fact that happiness arises from virtue and suffering arises from evil. This is assured, has been stated by the transcendent Sabura, the Bhagavan, is written in text by learned masters elaborating his thought, and can be heard in the glorious holy masters' songs of spiritual realization. Everyone desires happiness and wishes for not even the slightest misery. Yet, when others encourage us in the direction of wholesome conduct, we fail to hear their words. We engage in prescribed and natural misdeeds like water pouring downhill and act reluctantly to restrain them. Here within us is an evil holder of wrong views whose promises are completely contradicted by the way he behaves. For a beginnerless time, we have been circling through cyclic existence because of the 84,000 disturbing emotions. This also applies to the numerous troubles and pain we have experienced until today. Yet, despite having closed many doors to the achievements of benefits and pleasure, we still lack the vision to see even the slightest defect of any of this. Here within us is a clay image with blind eyes. In brief, if our actions of body, speech, and mind are done under the influence of self-centered attitude, the source of all misery and conflict, they will bring upon us all the trouble of external foes and eternal disturbances. Holding ourselves dear is like a blue-headed bird of ill omen. Therefore, now that we understand that we are to give up neglecting others, we should hold selfishness as our principal enemy and set it apart as a foe. As the exalted Shantideva has said, those earlier times when you have overcome me are past. Now I see you in another light. And wherever you go, I shall destroy your arrogance. Having sold you to others, I shall not be upset at having offered you into their service. If I should be negligent and not give you to other sentient beings, you will certainly deliver me to this guardian of hell. If that should take place, my misery will be interminable. Now, recalling my grudges against you, I shall destroy your concern for your own good. We should keep this in mind.
어딜 당이 딜롱섬 디샤샤고스로 디나 계란조 아니 딜직다데 아니 배 기드 참보 찬성 여규식로 대버침비 취어디 계란조 디간자 직 때바나 상기위 취난게 직 취게 치주 대버침비 취생 삼단은 딜리지레도 삼성 그 초아지 땡딜레 투그레스 로 근데난 탄이 가시 다 베베기 탄이 대저 낭미 탄이로 들자운데 테스트 지지는 고녀부 용스를 되네 자위기 아니 베시우여스 차베디.
Yes, I will leave the text here at this point in time. Anyway, we read through a few pages in this text, and Geshe feels that if you pick up this text and just read it leisurely, you'll be able to identify, to pin down the most important principles of the Buddhist teachings, the most important points of the Mahayana tradition. Here in this section, we read through an explanation of the drawbacks of a self-cherishing attitude, a selfish attitude. And the section employed quite a lot of analogies that are taken from Tibetan culture. So as such, not all of them are clear. It is likely that some of them were confusing, like all those birds and owls and so forth. But still, if we leave that aside, then we'll look at the main meaning of this text, what it emphasizes. Geshe feels that it clearly points out the important principle in the Buddhist teachings, and particularly in the Mahayana teachings.
당아주 출룩 잠블은 출룩배 망부여 땅에 쉬고 말아 출룩 망부 있는 망 제기 비기직 아니 즉 준비해야다 물론해야다 차세야 소리식 아니 디조 전된로직 망부지기다 출룩 슬라운디 딘디 소리식 맨로 삼성 그 전나 용 시그러스 이나야 아니 좀 된디 최대 딘디랑 마임바 오늘 그 무유네 술이야 아니 자하니 아니 교탄다가 름바지 시우슈식 송여레스로 딩안즈다 미기 남주여서 딜레야디 키치무레도스로.
It's important to recognize that because we have different religions and spiritual traditions around the world, and often we try to pin them down through looking at the external practices that they employ. So the offerings that are being made, if prostrations or token of bowing down, paying homage are made, if certain prayers and recitations are done. All those different expressions are found in different religions, but it's not that the essence of such tradition, such as, for example, the Buddhist tradition, can be limited to that. Actually, when you pick up a book like that, when you study a book such as this, you see that main practice is Buddhist practice is transforming our mind. So rather than focusing just on recitation and bowing down and making offerings and so forth, these are not the main or sole practices. The main practice is training our mind. Thank you. Do you want to explain why? All right, so
with the Bendrabo Kardzanla together.
Already bought my flight ticket, I'm sorry.
Yes.
To the moon.
Geshe Gela Yirang Goshin
George She ne de pade sange shindo me te o wa do na da shi la sure. Guru Ratna Mandala Kamiyataya. So just for the people at home, what has been happening now, just to let you know. So Geshe has been here for 7 years, and probably today is the 7th anniversary of his first teaching here at Chimerizic Institute. So yeah, Ruby and Colin are probably going to say something. I can translate you into English if you want, into proper English.
A day for rejoicing. Geshe Tsultrim has been here for 7 years. Friday, 7 years ago, arrived at the airport from the border of India to the border of Australia.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a big touch.
他对他的脚亲不亲着的，等样脚当时要接不到我的位，要看就。
Samsara chikparashas.
All the same in being samsara.
Shakyamuni Buddha said he's put a fear through in the future through the art. Shakyamuni Buddha on Kappa is appearing from Geshe and for the lineage. And Geshe, since I've been here, I've watched Geshe not only give teachings 5 days a week, but guide and care for the students, but also support and also helping with the infrastructure. That the new road and solar on the and Geshe enthusiasm and support for please stay with us and
I don't have choice. Adi dada lamga songe and garden songe tangi jukurtis sure modo ngazo maros so shembarwas ra ani droson dangi dada kolin zoitel chigiyors da dilega chigi zoitel koran chigiyors ra ani 어디 대인이 사나라 너무 가시수 디킬라 마스터라.
So, first of all, Geshe said, as far as building the road and the solar project and so forth, he's the one that maybe have been pushing people to do that. But the actual work has been done by many others. So, we should also thank the many others that have participated in that, and particularly Colin has been quite an active force in doing a lot of that work. So now Geshe said that it's just kind of the one that is asking or requesting or telling people to do it. But the main job is done by others, apart from, which is something that you felt miss, is cooking momos at the cafe from time to time. Yeah, so that Geshe has done actually himself.
데리카지니 ngalonga 캐시마서 툭도디 카시마서 두나 가진 지걸라다.
Anyway, kind of as you said that this is the 7th anniversary, and now Geshe is thinking that what about his 6th anniversary and 5th anniversary and stuff like there was nothing really coming in those anniversary only now. So what's the go? All right. Since you first arrived here, Geshe, till now, I've been a witness to something truly wonderful. And that is this amazing ability with just a simple handshake and you walk smile that people can have this
experience, and us fortunate enough to spend more time with you in teachings and working with, that has only ever grown more into a deeper respect and love and devotion for what you give for us. And for me personally, to have played some small part in helping manifest some of these beautiful ideas and visions you come up with, has been up there with the most satisfying, happiness making in my life. So, if I can take the liberty of being the mouthpiece on behalf of all of us here, I'm fortunate of you in our life. Please, Geshe, please, Rama, please, boss.
You are my boss. Conte kala ni samad kom sorry. Tuches the Karangi some bit tuchesra. Tenga ji lama ishi konsuda dorsa the Zawni Yomaris, Naranga Hako yes. Inangi samba namda chingan de chuzo de David samba namda chigore Samsung so the king chigius. Kazu not drawing you model young chuzo de district. Narangi can't over the chair Samsung Rachel. Nan drogo Samsung did so the king at Yajadam chigi. The Mambanga Kazu Devil it chigris. Same on in Machiroches.
So thank you very much for that. So Geshe said that, no, first of all, no, although you mentioned him together with Lama Geshe, he said that no, there's still no comparison between Lama Geshe and him. But anyway, his idea is that when the time comes for him to depart, in one way or another from Chenrezig Institute, he wants to do it with having no sense of regret in thinking that he's done whatever he can, to support what we do. So, who knows how long Geshe will live and, what's going to be the situation in the future. But anyway, Geshe says that at least for the time that is still here, he wants to make sure that kind of it is done, that he lives his life here in a meaningful way, in a positive way. So worry not.
At least as long as
And he
I'm going to be that much longer.
I'm not sure that I need to translate that. So I guess Geshe is implying that it needs me to stay around, but anyway.
di yawu yun yawu da di kongu yun nisra ngegi che kanshia ba di ani chi loma so tes chi ngotre yo ba na tikki yu ki konal den chong ma do tawshi yo marwas di dingi ani jaran pele do di tanda ba de she me mong ba she ma nga di she ma sra ine dingu yun nisra Anyways,
Geshe now is getting at me in that. So he says that to be able to be here and teach and do whatever he needs to do, he also needs a translator. So this is also an integral part of the team. So I hope that things will work out well in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So let's leave it here for now. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day.